Well, this feels appropriate.
You guys dressed up for me.
You dressed up for us too, thank you. Last year we had you on the video board at Chase, and you were looking very summery there. You look great tonight.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, we know you're a big history buff, and we consider ourselves historians above all else. So what we'd like to do here tonight is walk through the 20-year story with you of sort of how you turned J.P. Morgan Chase from a bank among many, to the most systemically important financial institution in the world. Are you game?
Sound good?
Sounds
All
great.
right.
Thank you. Yeah.
We want to start in 1998. You and your mentor, Sandy Weil, have just spent the past 13 years building the modern financial institution conglomerate, really the blueprint for what J.P. Morgan Chase is today, except it's not J.P. Morgan, it's Citigroup. And everybody on Wall Street and the entire world expects that you are going to be named CEO of Citigroup in short order.
This is 1998.
1998. This is not what happens. Instead, you get fired. And you have to restart your whole career, everything, your whole life from scratch.
Sorry to start here, by the way.
But before we get into what you do next, what was the model that you and Sandy built at Citigroup?
Okay. First of all, I am thrilled to be here. I want to congratulate these guys for building the Acquired. It's a great, intelligent addition to what we need to learn in society. And so I would say it wasn't quite the model, because if you look at what we did at Commercial Credit, Primerica, which then Travelers and merged, we were a financial conglomerate. We bought lots of companies and lots of different businesses. We fixed them up, we turned around, we made money, and then we merged it with Citibank, which obviously was a huge bank. And my view is we should skinny it down and kind of shed the parts that aren't that important to the rest of the company and keep the things that strategically belong together. It was one of my small disagreements with Sandy about the future of the company. And so, but it was big, it was making a lot of money, it was quite successful at the time, and then I got fired.
So how are you feeling in that moment?
When I got fired?
Yeah, that moment.
Well, my wife is here, and I was hosting 100 people, recruiting kids in my apartment in New York City, same apartment I have now. And they called me. We had a management meeting Sunday at 4 p.m. that night. And Sandy and John Reed called me up and said, can you come a little early? We got a bunch of stuff to talk about. I was the president and chief operating officer. I said, I can't. They said, well, it's really important. So I drove up there, and I sat down in the room with Sandy and John, and they said they want to make a few changes. And there are 3 of them. And they said, we want to make this person in charge of that. I said, okay, well, that didn't make sense to me. The second one, they wanted to make someone in charge of the Global Investment Bank, which I was running. I thought it was another stupid decision. And the third is they said, and we want you to resign. And I said, okay. Because at that moment, I knew it was all arranged. The boards had voted, the press release was written, the management team was coming up. So I waited for the management team to come up. I wished them the best. I said, you guys have a chance to build one of the great companies. They all thanked me. Sandy said, you want to do the press with me? I said, yeah, but I'll do it from home. So I went home, went to see my kids. They were like, one of my daughters here too. They were like 14, 12, and 10. And I walk in the front door, and I tell them, I was fired. And the youngest one says, Daddy, do we have to sleep on the streets? I said, no, we're okay. And the middle one, who was always obsessed with college for some reason, can I still go to college? I said, yeah. And the one who was here, was the oldest one, said, great, since you don't need it, can I have your cell phone? And then that night, about 50 people came over. All the same people I just met, all the management team, bringing whiskey, and it was like being at your own wake. And there's one really tall guy who came in, a very good friend of mine, and he looks, and my daughter looks up and says, who are you? He says, I work for your daddy. And he says, not anymore, you don't. And that was it. I was okay. I was like, I tell people, it was my net worth, not my self-worth that was involved.
And for anyone who doesn't sort of already know Jamie's story, you were the rising star. I mean, the Citi was the biggest bank. You were the heir apparent. I mean, this was like unfathomable. And for you to take it this gracefully, it says a lot. So you're sort of wandering in the woods, as best I can kind of reconstruct it, for about 18 months. Is that right? Figuring out what's next?
Yeah. it took me a while to exit and sign agreements and get out. They were kind of mean. And then I stepped in office, and it was late. We went for a nice long vacation and stuff like that. When I got back in September, so that was 6 months later, I started going to work. I had nothing to do, but I went from, to 9 to 5 and started calling people and thinking about what I'm going to do. It was in the Seagrams building, so I could go for lunch downstairs every day. And
At the Four Seasons?
At the Four Seasons. And I explored everything. Started my own merchant bank. I could have retired, just teaching, just investing. But I was 42.
And you took a call about running Amazon, right?
Say it again?
You took a call about running Amazon, didn't you?
I went to visit Jeff Bezos, who was looking for a president at the time. He and I hit it off. We've been friends ever since. He's an exceptional human being. But it was like a bridge too far. Even though that movie just came out, When Sally Met Harry, I was thinking, my God, I'll never wear a suit again. I'm going to live in a houseboat.
Yeah.
This would be really great.
What an alternate universe we'd be living in.
It would have been an alternate universe. But I'm still good friends with Jeff, so I got at least one good thing out of it. And then I got serious, and I was offered jobs to run, other big global investment banks. Hank Greenberg, who ran AIG, called me up and said, "You should come join us." I was thinking, I'm going to go from Sandy Weill to you? I mean, I have to have my head examined to do something like that.
And I didn't know the AIG story.
That happened years later, too. And then I got a phone call from a headhunter about Bank One. And I was also, you guys, a lot of you probably know Ken Langone and Bernie Marcus and Arthur Blank, ran Home Depot. I loved them. But at my first dinner with them, I went to see them in Atlanta. I said, I have to make a confession. Until you guys called, I had never been in a Home Depot. And
we were actually wondering, David and I were debating.
We were talking about it. You're a lifelong New Yorker.
My friend made me go up there and get some equipment and plants and stuff like that. But I love their culture, their attitude. They wanted me to do it. Ken Langone says, I still should have gotten you. I wasn't going to pay you enough. Of course, it had nothing to do with anything like that. And I had Bank One, but Bank One was my habitat. I was used to financial companies, services, banking. It wasn't quite global. It was a little global at the time. And it was a troubled bank. And, I decided that, life is what you make it. It was hard in my family. We had to move, I think, for anyone who's going to move kids I think they were 14, 12, and 10 or something. It's hard.
Some context on Bank One for folks who are not familiar. It's not in New York. It's a large bank, but it's a troubled bank.
Yeah.
It's based
in
Chicago.
When you say large, David, it's a $30 billion market cap bank. Citigroup, where you just had been before, was a $200 billion bank.
It was $21 billion at the time because it had, you have the right numbers, but it did a split. And so if you look back, it was more like 20 billion or something like that, yeah. And Citi was 200. But, I didn't worry about that. I was like, in life, you make things what they are. I don't like complaining about overspilled milk. You just put on your pants, you get going, you see what you can make out of it. And
But it sounds like you had opportunities to stay in New York to run
I did.
Bigger, more glamorous things.
This one I was going to run the company. The other ones would have been some investment banks. I didn't really trust some of the people who were talking to me about that. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I explored. I took phone calls, some small companies, some big companies. There's a couple of subprime mortgage companies who called me, and I was like, absolutely not.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. And so I just thought this was a chance, and if the family's willing to move, and we got it took us a while. We had to live in a rental for a while, but got a nice brownstone, and we ended up loving Chicago. Chicago is a wonderful city in a lot of different ways, and like I said, it is what you make it. And I put half my money in the stock at the time.
Yeah,
I was going to be the captain of the ship. I was going to go down with the ship. I made it clear to everyone I was here permanently, and it'll be what it is. And so I got to work like literally the next day.
Did we do the math right that right before you joined Bank One, you bought $60 million of stock?
I did.
I mean, I've never heard of someone taking a CEO job and saying, "I'm going to invest half my net worth in this company now."
Yeah, and I thought it might be overvalued a little bit because people thought it might be sold or something like that. But I didn't care about that. If you work at a company and the new CEO comes in, he's from out of town, and you're going to have a lot of shareholders, and I knew a lot of the shareholders. I was going to know a lot of the shareholders. I wanted them to know I was in 100%. Lock, stock, and barrel. There was no question. I would never sell that stock, and I'm going to go down with the ship or go up with the ship. And they also knew I was making decisions that I thought were right for the long-term health of the company, not for a short-term type of thing.
So what did you find when you got there? Day one on the job, you start investigating. Is it better, worse, the same than you thought?
There had been an analyst called Mike Mayo who had done a report I remember one of the great lines in the report, even Hercules couldn't fix it. It had been an amalgamation of Bank One, First Chicago, National Bank of Detroit,